I think we'll go ahead with the more primitive or more advanced form of refractive surgery, which is PRK, surface ablation. I personally do not have too much of experience in this, but I have been given this topic to speak on. So it's basically the removing of surface epithelium and then treating with the refractive laser. It is called surface ablation. We have three types. One is the PRK, one is the laser ablation, streamlight, another is epiLASIK. And it was started in 1983, and then US FDA approval was given in 1996. There are various reasons why PRK is preferred. First and foremost is when the surgeon is not very comfortable about landing up in flap complication, he does prefer PRK. Sometimes patients also want, by Googling, that the PRK does not have flap related issues, so they want. Second is professions, where there are likelihood of flap dislocation in professional sportsmen, boxers, so they would prefer to have PRK done. When it is contraindicated in corneal surface disorders or thin corneas where you cannot do LASIK, so these are other indications. And most importantly now, retreatments, PRK is the option. And in these cases, when you do PRK, what is most important is how do you do epithelial debridement. That is the key. Whether you are doing it fast enough and how much less trauma you are giving. So we have three mechanisms. One is mechanical removal of the surface epithelium. In these patients, you have to put a lot of proparacaine so that the epithelium is loosened, and then use a blunt spatula to slowly scrape it off. It is a good technique in the sense that you do not use any chemicals and you would less likely traumatize the limbal cells, and the healing is supposed to be faster, but the problem is the inaccuracies in healing, in epithelial growth. So here, because you are allowing the stroma to dry up because it is taking longer time, so the chances of slow reepitheliation is also there. And then after this, the second method is when you use alcohol or any chemical to loosen the epithelium. And what is commonly used is alcohol, 20 to 30% alcohol that is put on the surface into an optical marker, which is about 7 to 8 millimeters in diameter. Once the alcohol is kept inside the for about 30 seconds or maybe 20 seconds depending, then you have to absorb it with a wax sponge and then lift it and flush it thoroughly. So this way you do not spill the excess alcohol onto the limbal stem cells, and once it loosens, peeling off is fairly easy. It can come out in few seconds. It doesn't take more than about 10 seconds or so to peel it off the epithelium part. So here, because it is fast, you do not allow the stroma to dry, and also the healing is rapid. The brush, which is Amoly's brush, is basically used, which is a rotating brush, which is used to scrub off the epithelium. This is an animation where if you put the brush vertical onto the cornea, it will cause a uniform ablation of the surface, a uniform removal of the epithelium. But if you are not putting it perpendicular, then it is likely that you do not remove epithelium from the full area. It can be partial. So initially, I do not personally do not have any experience on that. The problem is once you put the brush in the front, the patient doesn't see. So you have to put an external light source on the other eye so that it is fixating centrally and the eye is not moving. And then you apply the brush, rotate, keep on rotating till you go to the basement membrane level. So giving an external fixator is very essential when you are using Amoly's brush. The second method of removing epithelium is laser based. I think I can just fast forward a bit more. Yeah. So the laser scraping or transepithelial technique. There are two machines which have this. One is the EX500, which is called the Streamlight, and another is Sweden machine where it is called transepithelial PRK. Process is same. You drape the patient, anesthetize the patient, put cold saline or cold BSS so that the patient has less pain, and then you do all the settings as you do for a PRK, except that you have to have an additional setting where you remove the epithelium, and the epithelial removal depends on the pre-operative evaluation of the corneal epithelial thickness by an intersegment OCT, and you can set about 45 to 60 microns thickness to remove the epithelium. In Streamlight, after the epithelium is removed, there is a gap for 2 to 3 seconds, and then again the PRK is completed, whereas in the transepithelial one, it is a continuous process. What is most important in PRK technique is the haze, corneal haze, and that causes not only poor visual outcome but also regression and patients' night vision issues. The mechanism is because of the formation of myofibroblast, which are induced by transforming growth factor beta, which are induced again because of delayed epithelial wound healing. So these are the main pathomechanism by which these myofibroblasts produce abnormal collagen fibers. So how do we prevent it? By proper patient selection. Do not choose patients who have any connective tissue disease. Do not do surgeries on a very high myop or a high hyperope, because in these cases there is always a delay in formation of the basement membrane. So delay in the basement membrane formation leads to more and more deposition of myofibroblasts. The other issues that are to be taken care of is how do we use medications. Usually the steroids are given for a long period, for a minimum period of 2 to 3 months, start with a high dose and taper it slowly. Then you have to prevent by using mitomycin C on the table intraoperatively. About 20 to 30 seconds of application of mitomycin C on the ablated surface helps in reducing the formation of myofibroblast, and it was invented by Mr. Majumdar, Dr. Majumdar in 2000, after which it has been used all across the world to prevent PRK haze. So you can soak blotting paper of about 7 to 8 millimeter diameter and put it on the ablated surface for about 20 seconds to 40 seconds depending on the amount of ablation that has been done, and after that it has to be thoroughly washed and the surface covered with a bandage contact lens. I don't know, stopped. Why did it stop here? Stop. No. Okay. There have been other uses of Procera, which is a biological corneal bandage device which has amniotic membrane, and these can reduce corneal scars or haze post PRK. Drugs which are known to decrease myofibroblast proliferation, one of them is the plasma rich in growth factors, can be used. So but there have been no specific drugs which have been introduced in the market. In case of very strong haze, you have to do a repeat PRK. You have to scrape off the unhealthy epithelium. Below the epithelium, either you can again scrape off the scar or do a repeat PTK. Here you can see the scar, and we can try to scrape it off. At times the blade can scrape off the scar. If it is not possible, you can do a repeat PTK and polish the surface, remove the scar, and again retreat with mitomycin C and complete the procedure. Okay, I think that is all regarding surface ablation and corneal haze prevention. Any issue, any discussion, anything which is coming into mind to be discussed, please feel forward to.
Excuse me, sir. I had a.
Yeah,
yes,
anybody has any questions? Yeah, please.
Any experience of iritis post surface ablation? Anybody over here? And the cause, if anybody has any, so far.
I personally have not done too many PRKs, so whatever I have done, I have not had a single case of iritis, no inflammation. Initially, my initial few cases where I was not able to clean the alcohol properly, there was delay in epithelial healing. So the bandage contact lens was to be kept for 5 to 7 days. But subsequently, once I learned to clean it properly, absorb the epithelium, absorb the alcohol, and then wash it, healing occurs normally in 3 to 5 days maximum. No incidence of inflammation.
Anybody?
Did you
Yeah.
encounter one?
Yeah, like several cases I need to report. I haven't reported yet, but I have come across several cases of iritis post surface ablation, at least 3 to 4 in my 10 years of practice. And it is not a early onset, it's always a late onset. And that is something which I need to find out from the literature or from my seniors and my colleagues. What is the reason behind it and how to prevent it and what to do about it. Although it goes off with time, but there has been cases, at least 4 cases, 3 to 4 cases I have seen in my practice.
And all the 4 cases that you have seen do not have any autoimmune diseases
No,
in them.
no
They have been screened properly.
autoimmune disease, and the healing for the first week went all right, the same presentation in all the cases. So this is something I'm trying to find out the answer to it.
Sometimes herpes eye disease has to be ruled out
Okay.
preoperatively because that is known if the patient has missed, if the patient has some little bit pigmentation on the posterior corneal surface or had some episode of herpetic keratitis, they are the ones who get this.
Okay.
Yeah, so that needs to be ruled out.
Thank you.
But are there any refractive guidelines or the corneal thickness guidelines that you follow in your practice where you do PRK and these cases you will do a flap base?
Yeah, that is a main requirement, I think.
Yeah.
For LASIK minimum, we go for 500 microns, and then we calculate the depth,
Yeah.
how much depth we are left
But
over.
is there any refractive, the refractive, how much? 1 diopter, 2 diopter? Do you
for
follow
PRK?
it? For LASIK, where you won't do LASIK, where you would do PRK, other than the corneal thickness.
LASIK from 0.5 you can do
Yeah.
absolutely okay.
So
PRK, it is not wise to do beyond 4 because of the chances of haze.
you
But
have
those people are
lot
going
of
to
lot
7.
of people going for services who would be tested, and especially army and all, where they don't want any LASIK mark to be there or anything. And do you advocate PRK in those?
Yeah. I think morning there was a session where they were talking about PRK revisited in a way that they call it ASA, Advanced Surface Ablation,
Yeah.
which is mainly transepithelial TPRK.
Yeah.
And if you have that machine which can do trans PRK, then chances of epithelial problems and epithelial haze are much less. So I think with the newer people are again going towards the PRK. That's what the morning session people are talking about.
I think
it.
that's the new
But-
machine. That's the new.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
new
my
machine-
only concern is they are
The
all
haze.
saying it's fine. No, it's not haze. Haze, it's fairly good to be. My only concern is whether the surface epithelium which grows back very regular. If it doesn't become regular and you are doing it for a person who would like to join Army 6/6 vision,
It's quality of the vision.
yes. So you might land up with a 0.5 residual cylinder because of the irregular corneal surface regrowth. Okay. You can have epithelial hypertrophy in these cases. So you have to have ample time, and by ample time it means it may be 3 months to 6 months.
For you.
One more thing, keloids, patients with a tendency to keloids, then you have to avoid
Yes.
this. And I think the NN group was talking about using AccuVeil to reduce postoperative pain.
That I do
BCLs
always.
soaked
They are
in-
also saying about a role of vitamin D3 to decrease pain, and of course omega-3 fatty
Vitamin-
acids to decrease scarring.
Vitamin D is obviously controversial because everyone is deficient, but yeah, that has been published to have a role as well.
Now I invite Dr. Ajay Pal to speak on refractive